Hi, welcome to the debut edition of Inside the Lines, brought to you by Rodney and Langley Funeral Homes and Alex City Marine. I'm Lizi Arbogast with Scott Hardy, and we are ready to talk some football.
Absolutely. I'm very excited about this new venture, and I hope that everyone within the community, especially a rabid sports-crazed area like Lake Martin is, and in particular football, will enjoy what we're about to bring.
And I'm super excited about this week in particular. I couldn't even barely pick the game of the week, but we are going to kick it off with our game of the week, which is Central Clay County at Benjamin Russell. I always want to say Clay Central County, but it's not. Tell me a little bit about what you know about Central Clay County and what Benjamin Russell can expect in their season opener.
Well, the thing that gets this team going, Central Clay that is their running back Cameron Peoples, a highly touted guy, and somebody the Wildcats are familiar with. Last week they scored 21 points and he had all 3 touchdowns. So I would expect for him to be the main horse or the person that's carrying the ball the most for them and from an offensive standpoint. But having said that, the Wildcats and the Volunteers are very familiar with each other. Mm-hmm. This is the third time playing each other in the last 3 years. But Coach Herron on the other side and Coach Horn were coaching mates for quite some time, right. So they're very familiar with each other. So I think that there won't be any surprises from any of the coaching staffs for this game.
I'm excited to see what we get from Benjamin Russell's defense. I've heard they're much improved. Saw some highlights during the scrimmage last week against Stanhope Elmore. There was that pick 6. Obviously, if they can play defensively well, that always bodes better.
I did have the opportunity to travel to Stanhope and watch the Jamboree, and I must say that I was very impressed with the defense, in particular the front 7, and obviously that's something that Coach Horn has been preaching, and Coach Burkhalter, the defensive coordinator, has been preaching the entire preseason leading up to this first game. And I'm not going to lie, the defensive line really stepped up, and when you have 2 players like Jaden Tuck and Benjamin Hendricks at the linebacking position, one at the middle, one at the outside, if they're able to get some help from their front 4, I think they'll be very productive.
Seems like the atmosphere is going to be really good. I stopped by the high school today to meet with the athletic director, Coach Pam Robinson, and she was selling the season tickets, and she said that things are going really well in terms of ticket sales, so it sounds like the atmosphere will be pretty exciting for this game too.
Yeah, and there were 2 previous games when I was in high school. Well, actually right after I got out of high school, the series started, and the year that it was at Benjamin Russell was the first year I started doing sideline reporting, and I think that was one of the more intense games that I've been a part of. But I think you'll see that replicated this year, especially with the Wildcats losing the game last year. So Coach Horn does not want to see that happen again. Yeah, so the seniors know how important it is for them to get this victory against Clay Central.
And speaking of a good environment, we also have Dadeville headed to Reeltown. I'm pretty sure that was the first thing I heard about when I came to Alabama was the Dadeville-Reeltown game. You have to be at the Dadeville-Reeltown game. It could potentially be a very good game. Dadeville obviously got off to a really good start against Lafayette. Reeltown battled back and forth with Notasulga. You've, I'm sure, been to that game before. What is the environment like?
Well, it's 2 fan bases that know their football. So we have an educated fan base that amplifies the trash talking a little bit. But I will say that I was surprised. I think we had surprise endings or in results for last week. I really thought Lafayette would get the win against Dadeville, and I thought that Reeltown would start their season off with a victory. And that was one of our 3 keys to success for this year's team for Reeltown, was to get off to a good start. Like I said, last season, 64. I guess a replication of what we saw last year, but environment-wise, again, this is a very exciting matchup, and I look forward to some high scoring on this Thursday.
And I did talk to Coach Matt Johnson, Reeltown's coach, earlier today, and I think one of the big things they did not so well against Notasulga was they didn't cover the outside very well. The perimeter was not great. And looking at Dadeville with Quay Tucker, he was our athlete of the week this week. If you get him on the outside, you give him a little space, he could really burn you.
Yeah, and again, that's been kind of what you see from a Dadeville Tiger football team. They've had a player each year that stepped up and really has been the catalyst offensively for them, and it looks like Quay's going to be that same player again coming in after Buchanan last year. But I think the magic number for this game is 30. I think the team that gets to 31st will win this game. So I anticipate Dadeville starting the season 2-0, just to say that I do think that they'll be able to get the victory there. Reeltown coming in after the loss there. So Dadeville does have athletes to compete, so we'll see what happens.
All right. Next, we're going to move on to Horseshoe Bend at Donahoe. Honestly, I don't know a whole lot about Donahoe, but I did like what I heard from Horseshoe Bend's Jamboree game against BB Comer. They posted a shutout, which is obviously a great defensive start, and they got some of their offensive weapons moving for sure.
Yeah, this is a team that last year the Generals beat pretty handedly, and I anticipate this happening again. Donahoe only had 2 wins, I think, last year. They finished the season 2-8, so it doesn't look like a team that really would be able to pose a legitimate threat to the Generals. But this is a new and improved atmosphere and environment and culture that you're seeing at Horseshoe Bend. And Coach Josh Averitt comes in for the last 10 years or so. It's kind of been up and down for the Generals, but to see the sustained success that I think they're going to have is really exciting to see, because the Generals support the fan base supports the Generals regardless of the record, and so to have a product on the field that's worth going out to see each and every week, I think it is good for them.
Right, and with so many seniors, I think Averitt said to me, like, this is their year. You know, you're not getting a second chance now. So with all those seniors and that much experience, you would expect good things from the Generals.
Absolutely.
Moving on to our last game this week is going to be Coosa at Fayetteville. Obviously, Central Coosa struggled quite a bit against Catholic Montgomery. They need to fix those little things. I mean, they were fumbling some snaps, got sacked quite a bit. So if they have a chance to at least compete this week, I think Fayetteville is pretty decent. But it could be a long road ahead for Coosa.
Yeah, and with so many obstacles in their way to begin the season with so much transition, their margin for error was limited anyway. It was very small, so you can't afford to have mental mistakes like that. And so it's something as simple as being able to take a snap is going to be something that needs to be corrected as you head into week 2. But if I'm not mistaken, we were talking during some of the first half of that game that maybe had negative 50 yards or something roughly like that in the first half. So this will be a tougher matchup this week. But I do feel that at some point there will be a turning of the guard there, because they do have athletes, even in that limited capacity. So there's some opportunities there for them to bust some big plays and maybe get something in the return game that will allow them to be more successful than they were last year, or last week rather.
And I think they did some things well defensively. So if they can, I mean, the score got out of hand early, but if they can maybe limit the score from getting, I think it was 28-0 after the first quarter, if they can limit that, you know, they ended up only giving up, 21 points or whatever it was for the rest of the game. So that's not as bad. Lastly, we're going to wrap it up each week with our Dark Horse Player of the Year, brought to you by Dark Insurance. And actually, I'm going to stick with Coosa. I'm going with Dante Daniel. I loved what I saw from him. I heard a lot about his offense, and he did run for, I think, 115 yards. Had that one big touchdown, like you said, a big play from them. But I was really impressed with his defense. He had, I think, 4 tackles for a loss. He was just kind of flying all over the field. He played quarterback for a while. I just really liked what I saw from him.
Yeah, I think that's a really good pick. And again, he's going to be somebody that they need to really be an overall just impact player on both sides of the ball for them to be as successful as they would like to be. But excuse me, I really wanted to go with the Benton Russell Wildcat, but I didn't want to be called. I didn't want to be a homer on the first show. So I'm going to go with a Horseshoe Bend General. I'm going to go with Trace Meadows, who in last week's Jamboree had over 130 yards of total offense, 68 and 65 receiving and rushing, or rushing and receiving there. So a very balanced attack from him, and I anticipate him continuing that yardage total and getting as many touches as possible with him and Cade Worthy in the backfield. I think that'll be one of the better dynamic duos that we'll see in the area.
You'll probably actually see more yardage from him and more carries. I think he was taken out after maybe the first series of the second quarter, just because they were so far ahead, and it was a scrimmage game. So I think he only had maybe 6 or 7 carries, and was still able to get the yardage that he did. So, all right, well, thank you so much for joining us. Again, want to thank our sponsors, Radney and Langley Funeral Homes, as well as Alex City Marine and Dark Insurance Agency. And make sure to join us every Friday night and Thursday this week, too, for our Inside the Lines Live. Pretty excited about that. We'll be on Facebook Live from 6 to 6:30 prior to every game of the week. And I hope you enjoy what we've got for you this season.